Mm. 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 Mm.
Mm. That's good stuff.
It is good stuff.
Hey, did you get your blue milk today?
I forgot.
DB?
This is plain milk.
Me too.
Oh, you need your True Moo Blue.
Yes. Did you get it?
I did not.
I totally forgot about it.
Well, I did grab this for the episode.
What's this stuff? Not cereal. It's supposed to be good for you. Did you try it? I'm not going to try it. You try it. I'm not going to try it. Let's get Mikey. Yeah. He won't need it. He hates everything. He likes it. Hey, Mikey.
When you bring life home, don't tell the kids it's one of those nutritional cereals you've been trying to get them to eat. You're the only one who has to know.
Yes.
It says right here.
Nice.
It says right here on my cereal box that a daily dose of Hyperspace Heroes is 300% of all the daily sarcasm and cringe that somebody can stand. So
I would have thought it would have been more than 300%.
It depends if it's all three of us or just me and you.
There you go.
There
See,
you go.
That's the point. All right, we should probably.
And now, on with the show.
And away we go.
Podcasting, the final audio frontier. These are the legends of Brown Squadron.
Our computer is picking up a strange signal. Here, sir, you better take a look at it.
The ongoing mission? To explore the Star Wars universe and other nerd culture topics. To seek new content and new cantinas, bars, and lounges. To boldly annoy Scruffy by making too many bad jokes. Welcome to the Hyperspace Heroes Podcast.
All right, and welcome to Hyperspace Heroes. This is Brown Leader signing in. All wings report in.
Brown 2 here.
4.
4.
I'm 4 years old. I'm 4 years old.
4. I'm 4
years old.
4 years old.
Oh, I was thinking that because Scruffy showed his box of C-3POs, and I have a box of Mandalorian or Baby Yoda cereal, as my kid called it, and I couldn't find it for this bit.
But do you have Ewok Crunchies?
Oh my gosh, I do
Ewok
not
crisps.
have
That
Ewok
is very
crisps.
cool. That is very cool. Welcome to episode 83 or 108 on the Spotchka scale. And we actually already have somebody in the chat that joined us loving some Life cereal from Mike the Mike guy who was on with us last
Hey,
week.
Mike.
Mike, how's it going? So cereal, why are we having fun with cereal today? Well, it's in relation to our guest, and we're doing a special episode today. Normally we're on Thursday nights, and we're doing a special episode tonight because it's another kind of what were we calling it? Road to ICCC, where we're bringing back some of the people that we met at ICCC last year and the year before that, and just talking about the con because we're all kind of missing it. But it was a chance to kind of network again with our fellow podcasters that we had a lot of fun with last year. And so today's episode, we have Johnny from Back of the Cereal Box Pod, and it's a pop culture podcast for those of us, especially Gen Xers, that grew up on Saturday morning cartoons and eating your cereal and reading the back of the cereal box. If you know, you know. And if you know, you know. And so, so kind of having some fun with that theme. Yeah, we're going to talk about some Star Wars animation. We're going to talk about some sequels tonight, and possibly maybe how it ties maybe how it ties in with animation. And
all right,
like Jaws 3D.
Jaws 3D. But I want to make sure that
they were.
I just want to make sure that we keep forgetting to plug. We're live on YouTube, Twix, and what's the other one? Facebook. And so you can find us on all three of those. You can make sure that you what's all the hip kids say? Like, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell thing. They always point at the bottom. Right. So, but anyway, let's bring our guest in. So we're gonna bring in Johnny right now. So welcome, Johnny.
Welcome.
Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Excited to talk Star Wars. Star Wars is oxygen to me.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It is. So before we get into that discussion, let's why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about yourself and your show.
So I am the host of the Back of the Cereal Box podcast, a pop culture podcast that celebrates the fun of the Saturday mornings of our youth while sharing what we love today. And we jump in our PJs, grab big bowls of cereal, we gather together in the virtual rec room, and we talk about the stuff from the Saturdays of our youth: cartoons, comic books, kaiju, kung fu, and wrestling sometimes. And there's a healthy dose of discussion about Star Wars, because when I was a kid, after watching the cartoons and watching Godzilla or kung fu movies, we were jumping on the bike and riding down to the theater. I remember 10 years old in 1980, riding my bike to the theater to watch The Empire Strikes Back for the 900th time. And still, I was ticked off every single time it ended. But that's a whole nother story. But anyway, so that's what our podcast is about. The fun of our youth while surviving adulthood today.
Right. And now if a 10-year-old rode their bike to the theater, Child Protective Services would get called.
You know, it's funny because when we were kids, and I think I can say we for everyone in this room, you know, for whatever, do you really think our moms believed that we were just riding around the block for 8 hours at a time? Because in that 8 hours, we rode 5 miles, crossed a train track, you know, tried to summon a demon in the sewers, built a fort.
Found a dead body in the dump. Yeah.
But the real question is, were they believing it, or did they even care at that point? It was kind of like,
go with option number 2.
Get the kids out of the house for the day.
So, you know, it's funny. My parents, they had a conch shell. And when it was time to come in, after the streetlights came on, it was dark, they would just blow that conch shell. And you could hear it all like for miles. And that was like, okay, it's time to come in.
Yep.
That is awesome.
We didn't hear from them before that. You know, we were gone at 8, 10, 12, whatever, and gone for the entire day. And we didn't hear from them until it was time to come home.
Right on. Okay, so first question we always ask our guests is, what does Star Wars mean to you?
So it really, truthfully, it is oxygen. Star Wars is responsible for my career as an entertainer. Yes, I do the podcast, but I'm also a world champion magician, author, actor, singer, and I've performed all over the world. But it all started in 1977 on a Friday night in May. I'm in the theater, and I had no idea what we were going to see. It was opening night for Star Wars. Nobody knew what it was yet. But when Darth Vader stepped through that door of the Rebel blockade runner, I pointed to the screen and I audibly said, I want to do that. And I didn't know what that was. But you know, at the end of the day, it set me down a course into the entertainment industry, and everything I do in my life, everything in my career, in my personal lives is informed by Star Wars. It really is the oxygen of my existence.
That's very cool.
That's awesome.
DB?
Well, you've already touched on it, but I want to know about your first Star Wars experience.
Yeah, that was it. On opening night, 1977. Look, I remember this so clearly. I was spending the night with my friend, Jimmy Pepper. We had pepper steak for dinner. His mom made it. We went to the theater, and I was wearing a red velour long sleeve shirt with a velvet black collar and a zipper, and green Sears tough skin corduroy pants, and a pair of red Keds. I remember that night that clearly. What I was wearing, what I ate, who I was with, and that was my first Star Wars experience, and it hasn't ended since.
That's amazing because I can't
Awesome
remember what I
visual.
had for dinner an hour ago.
That was an awesome visual. Thank you.
But
For
you
that.
know what I can remember is that from the quarter ray is your
the noise those pants made.
Well, and look, I was the husky kid.
I was too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. All right. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. And so we're brought you on tonight. We're going to talk a little ICC, of course, as we get later into the show, but wanted to talk really, you do a lot of your shows about the 80s cartoons, animation. Animation as it's the cool thing, nobody calls them cartoons anymore.
No,
but
it's cartoons.
Yeah, it's cartoons. Well, yeah. I don't know. I'd say Ewoks and Droids are a cartoon, but I would honestly call the Tales or Bad Batch animation. I mean, I think it really.
Okay. All right, I buy that.
There's kind of definitely a step up from that, but yeah, just kind of wanted to talk about what how you guys see Star Wars animation going in general. Yeah, go ahead, Johnny.
Well, so obviously, as a kid of the 80s, I love animation and animated stories. I remember watching Droids and Ewoks on Saturday morning and thinking it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Through adult eyes, maybe not so much. but the Clone Wars was some of the best Star Wars storytelling. I absolutely loved Rebels, and through Clone Wars and Rebels, I fell in love with Ahsoka Tano. She has become my favorite Star Wars character. And, the Tales of the Jedi, oh my gosh, what a great series that was. I can't wait till the second season, Tales of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
That looks equally epic. And, recently I finally gotten into the Bad Batch. A lot of people love the Bad Batch, and it didn't really resonate with me at first because I'm just not a clone trooper fan.
Okay.
I never really related to them. I never really cared about Captain Rex or Commander Cody. Like my son, I mean, those are two of his heroes. But I was just like, okay, they're clones, whatever. So the Bad Batch took a long time to grow on me, but this season has been really outstanding. And I think what George Lucas and Dave Filoni, and now Filoni and Jon Favreau and his whole crew used animation to fill in the holes and make the prequels better with the Clone Wars. And with the Bad Batch, it's making the sequels better. And I love how everything's starting to connect with the Mandalorian and the whole Mandoverse, and leading us into the sequels with the return of Palpatine. And it makes sense with Project Necromancer and, what's his name? Is it Hargrave?
Hargrove or Hemlock.
I don't know why I can never remember his name, but Hemlock starting Project Necromancer, and then Moff Gideon continuing it in the Mandalorian stuff. And I think it makes the eventual return of the Emperor make sense, and as a whole makes the prequels or the sequels better.
I wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said.
Absolutely.
Which does not make for a good debate kind of show. But...
No. Well, so at ICC, I did have an interesting debate with some of the guys from Eclectic Collective, because I maintain this will be the spicy debate portion. I maintain that The Last Jedi is a masterpiece of character study and deconstruction, and it's my favorite of the sequel trilogy.
I about
stop it.
Well,
my mom said if you had nothing nice to say, don't say anything. So.
Well, and here's why. Here's why I think it is the best. Because a lot of people get all wrapped around the axle about Luke Skywalker and how they portrayed him. And here's the fact of the matter. You have this hero of the rebellion, of the New Republic, who has been saddled with the fate of the universe on his shoulders, rebuilding the Jedi Order and maintaining peace. It's all put on him. And he fails monumentally. That would break anybody. And I think that the stakes were so high that the fall and his brokenness is commensurate to the pressure that was put on him. And I can tell you guys, as a grown adult man, I've had those kind of failures in my life. And I really related to where Luke was, where we met him in The Last Jedi. And we saw this great arc with him through that one movie where he went from broken and just broken, bitter, to being the force-wielding badass that he always was. He projected his consciousness across the galaxy and had a lightsaber duel with freaking Kylo Ren. I mean, come on.
I think they did an awesome job with Luke in those movies. I didn't really care for all the bashing of Luke. Of course, he's a broken man. He failed. Yeah. His nephew even at that. So of course he's in that position. He's in that state of mind. Actually, I really liked The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. They were probably, or not Force Awakens, Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
The Force Awakens to me was a little bit of a letdown because I have my anticipation and my hopes built up so much for it. And I rewatched A New Hope. So I was a little disappointed in that one. But I mean, beyond that, I love the other two. I thought they were great.
Yeah, I felt like Force Awakens was a really good contemporary action adventure movie directed by J.J. Abrams.
Agreed.
It didn't feel like a Star Wars movie to me, even though it copied the beats of A New Hope. It was a lot like, I could compare it a lot to Ghostbusters Afterlife. That had the same kind of feel. It had the same beats, the same story, high points, but it felt like a remake of the original. And that's kind of how Force Awakens felt to me. But then we get to Last Jedi and, what's his name? Rian Johnson. Just, I love that he turned it on its ear and turned it on its side. And that's always something for me as a creative, that I look for those little nuances to really put a wedge in and expand.
Well, and I think a point that a lot of people miss too is, and I had read this a while back, and it kind of made a point, which was the second movie in the trilogy has always been a departure from the first one.
Oh yeah,
Empire was a massive departure from the first one. Attack of the Clones was a political left turn from the original, and so I don't mind it shifting that way. And like with Luke, the only thing that didn't feel right though was, okay, I get it, he failed, he was a broken man, but this was also the man that, despite everybody telling him not to, went back to go save his father, who was evil incarnate, and he failed Ben. And there was something about the framing of that scene that just felt really weird when they show the flashback, the memory of him raising the saber to Kylo, and that was more of a technical thing. It just, something didn't seem right about it. But what I thought, okay, I get it. And we all have those failures. We all have those downtimes, but Luke is in his core is an eternal optimist. And he's gonna, at some point, why would he leave Kylo to just, after he ruined that relationship, had that failure, why would he become a permanent hermit and not at some point go, I got to go save Ben. I got to go help him. And I've got to, help get him back to the light side. And that's why I liked old man grumpy Luke. I was very intrigued by the concept when we first heard of it. I thought, okay, let's see where this is going. It just seemed like, I don't know. I just think over the long lifespan of a person, Luke would at some point start to turn, say, all right, I've got to pick myself up. I've got to get going again. I failed with Ben, just like I failed facing my dad the first time. And I've got to go save him. He's family. He's blood. I can't let him just continue on the path that he's going.
Yeah, I think it took him having a slap in the face by a new student. Ray needed to kick his butt. And sometimes, a lot of people don't understand this about depression. Sometimes, you just sink into this quagmire, and you cannot escape it by yourself. Someone's got to come up beside you and either, slap you in the face and say, pull your boots up, put your big boy panties on, and, get over this, or come beside you and carry you along. And that's what Luke needed. But, to your point, the middle film, when I saw Empire Strikes Back, I was ticked off. At the end of that, I was like, are you kidding me? What? He's his father and he's lost his hand and the Empire won? For 3 years, I was mad.
Right. That was my first film, so that was my introduction to Star Wars. So at least I started there, so I didn't have, I know a lot of people, some people went through that back when those original films came out, for sure.
Yeah.
That was a rough 3 years, I'll give you that, because it left on such a negative spot there that it was a long 3 years before we finally got our Return of the Jedi, our redemption there. That was tough.
I went and saw it several more times just to make sure that I wasn't imagining that it ended that way. I wanted it to have a different ending. and it was a long time.
It was so far ahead of its time in building an overall story. No other movies were doing that. You had to have everything wrapped up with a bow at the end of a film.
Well, I was thinking about that yesterday morning driving into work. If you look at the slate of movies coming out of Hollywood this year, they're all sequels. They're all continuations of, franchise stories. And I blame George Lucas for the state of Hollywood today, because nothing coming out this year excites me. Because when he made Star Wars, it was a beginning, middle, and end. And if he had never made another movie, that would have been a perfect story. And so we weren't expecting it. Now everyone expects every franchise to be a 3-movie trilogy, to have multiple sequels. My television just turned on by itself.
Did you use the Force?
The power of the Force.
That's very strange. Give me a moment to go turn that off.
All right.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, while Johnny's away, I've been holding back.
I know you have.
I love his analysis. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll talk about that when he comes back.
So
anyway, no matter how wrong Johnny is about The Last Jedi.
Well,
no, I got a couple things to say here. First of all, you talk about this year's slate of movie. We got Dune and we got Ghostbusters, so it's obviously 1985.
Ghostbusters.
Okay. Yeah.
They were both movies that were made.
Right. And well, it also doesn't help with, Marvel's successful run of 20 or 22 films telling an overall. And again, that was built off of what Lucas and now Disney is doing with, with Star Wars. But that's the expectation now. That is the norm. If it's not, people complain if it is a standalone movie now. And, you're right. When we had the original trilogy, it was groundbreaking. It was, you had, The Godfather and Godfather Part 1 and 2, but, there's just nothing in like pop culture,
And we didn't even know going into Empire Strikes Back, we didn't know that there was going to be a Return of the Jedi. Now, at the end of Empire Strikes Back, people were so invested, we were so upset or so curious as to how does this end that Lucas had to do a third. But you know what? Even if Empire Strikes Back had failed, Lucas had made so much money from Star Wars that he did what he wanted to do. He did Empire and Return of the Jedi on his own. Yeah, they were distributed by 20th Century Fox, but he financed everything on his own. So he was going to finish that story one way or another.
Well, even if he didn't want to, with the receipts that 20th Century Fox saw, they would have thrown the money at him to finish the story, I believe.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, go ahead, DB.
No, I was just going to point out how everything he said, every word he said about The Last Jedi was wrong. To quote Luke Skywalker. No, I won't. But I will fess up. I loved your analysis of it because it is my least favorite of the sequels, and not because of the old man Luke story. I think we took too many other turns with the Canto Bight story and the whole DJ subplot. I thought that muddied it up. And then, the slow white Bronco chase across the galaxy really annoyed the daylights out of me. Yeah, I just made an OJ joke. Yeah, and he just died. Okay, whatever.
Okay, so wait. I have a question for you about that. So
yeah,
I like the Canto Bight scene for one reason, and that is I love it when Star Wars shows us the culture of the galaxy far, far away. And so I love those kind of scenes, like the pod race on Naboo. I love that. The scenes in Coruscant, like Jax Dexter, his diner. I love all of that. Yeah, whatever.
Absolutely.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I love all of that. And so I like Canto Bight for that reason. I thought for sure when I saw the Master Codebreaker, in my head canon, that is Talon Card.
Okay.
And if it had been Talon Card, I think fans would have lost their stuff.
Absolutely.
And they would not have complained about that scene. But instead we went DJ, and yeah, I love Del Toro, but golly, I hated that character.
Yeah. When I think of the Canto Bight, I think of the space Karen going, they're the ones that are illegally parked. Really?
Well, thanks for ruining that for me.
Well,
okay.
I actually liked DJ, and I liked the conversation they were having on the ship about war profiteers and everything, and I think one of the things one of the things about the sequels for me is it had a lot of good components. I just think some of the execution could have been better. They could have spent maybe a couple extra lines of dialogue or a couple little exposition here or there just to give it a little more color. I like DJ's betrayal to the First Order. I thought that was a great little twist. I even liked a BB-8 behind the controls of a ATST without the canopy on, or the shell on it, blasting troopers. And part of it too was the hype that was built up for these movies. Phasma. Phasma is a prime example. So much hype built for that character, and getting somebody like Gwendolyn Christie to play it, all the PR, and she was a Boba Fett, and it was
a wasted character.
It was there was potential there. Ray, or no, not Ray. I didn't mind Ray at all. It was the direction they took Finn, again, and I can see where they were trying to, especially in the third one with, what was her name? Jaina, with the stormtrooper. And I could see the start of something, but it just didn't really get flushed out, or is, Zori, or kind of shoehorning, this whole smuggler backstory for Poe in the third movie, or they were throwing all these little bits out, but not really bringing anything to fruition. And it was just kind of for me, I think that's where the sequels kind of, and yeah, I get it. They say it wasn't made for us. It was made for the new generation. So DB's daughter, she's a sequel kid and absolutely loves it. And I couldn't be happier for it. That's her Star Wars. And I think us as older fans, we wanted more. Why? Because we've been through it all. And just like in our lives, we have further development in our lives. We have more muddying of the waters. We have more gray in our lives. Go ahead.
We have action figures.
Right. Yeah.
So here's my theory that fans our age really had such high expectations for the prequels and the sequels because we grew up creating our own stories with our action figures.
Mm-hmm.
And in our minds, there was nothing that was going to ever live up to those stories we created for ourselves.
True.
Absolutely.
It was an impossible expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Everybody gets hung up on the grumpy old man Luke bit. And I think the only thing that really disturbed me was the opening scene where he tosses the lightsaber over his shoulder. Okay. I think the comedic effect didn't work for me there, but Mark Hamill tried to warn us that this was going to be a different movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch any of his interviews from back then, and everybody would ask him, "Oh, how are you going to train Rey?" And he would say, "How do you know I'm going to train her?"
Mm-hmm.
And he was right on track. And I don't mind the portrayal of any of the classic characters in the new trilogy. I wish they would not have killed Luke off. I get it. It was his redemption story there. But the fact that we lost Carrie Fisher in between films really put him behind the 8 ball.
Well, here's the problem I think that the sequel trilogy had is that it was supposed to be a passing of the torch movie or series.
Yeah.
But there is no scene with all 3 of the OGs together.
Correct.
So there was no possible way it could be a true passing of the torch to the next generation. If it had been, I think fans would have reacted completely different. Listen, if Leia, Han, and Luke, all 3 died in The Force Awakens in a final grand hurrah, shoot 'em out. Fans would have felt sad, but they would have been kind of relieved and satisfied by that, that they went out passing the torch in a grand fashion. But, as it was, Han's, killed on a remote planet by his son. And that had gravitas, that had impact, but not the same way it would have been if he had been the hero sacrificing himself to destroy them. Anyway, and Luke just fades away and becomes one with the Force. And then Leia doesn't get her moment at all because Carrie died in between the movies. Mm-hmm. And so that is a legitimate disappointment that fans can have. But one thing I do love about The Last Jedi, and this is something that we do on our podcast, on Back of the Cereal Box. This is one of our mottos, is that I say, we're not going to win this war by fighting what we hate. We're going to win it by saving what we love. And I think that's such an important lesson for fandom, because you guys have seen how fandom has just torn itself apart, and people railing against what they hate instead of finding something to celebrate in what they love. And so that's the call we make on Back of the Cereal Box, is even if you don't like something, find something to celebrate about it and save what you love.
And I think that's what conventions are great for, because, every convention we've gone to, we hit Chicago, Celebration Chicago. We've done ICCC a couple times now. And at the cons, it's nice because you don't have that. Everybody's just there to have a good time. Everybody's just there. And I think part of it is the face-to-face, social media is allowed. There's always been division. Just take the Boba Fett argument from the OT trilogy, right, Scruffy? And
Absolutely.
there's always been division. There's always been, people tearing things apart. There's always been the trolls. They just have easier access to be trolls now, and they can post it for all to see. I mean, it's just the difference in tools that they have at their disposal. But back on I lost my train of thought now. There was something. Oh, passing the torch. I got to give it. At least like in Star Trek, you had Shatner literally passing the torch to Picard. In the movies before Kirk gets killed off. So at least that carried some gravitas to passing the torch.
For the record, I did not bring up Star Trek.
But that's a good example.
The record has been noted. Yes.
Now, to your point, Brown Leader, there was some clunky dialogue in the sequel trilogy. In particular, the infamous somehow Palpatine returned.
Has returned.
Now, we all knew how he had returned because we've been invested in this, right? We knew he'd been doing Dark Empire and Heir to the Empire. We read all that stuff. We knew what was going on in that one line of dialogue. But couldn't he have said, "Hey, we've heard that the Emperor was using clones. He did it somehow. He has returned." That would have solved that one problem. And that's what the animation is doing. That's what Bad Batch is doing. It's solving that problem. And I have a theory about Omega from the Bad Batch. Can I share it?
Absolutely.
Bring it.
Spoiler alert for anyone who's not been watching season 3. The Hemlock is operating Project Necromancer, which is all about finding a way to clone or to make force-sensitive clone vessels for the Emperor's consciousness. And Omega is the first clone that can accept midichlorian high M count blood. And so now they see this pathway to create force-sensitive clones for the Emperor's consciousness. And I believe that Omega is actually the original template for Rey. I believe that Rey is actually a clone of Omega, one of probably many. And if that bears out to be true, it clears up the inconsistencies in her origin story, because that will make her a blood relative of the Emperor, because she's a clone created with his M count, his blood. But at the same time, because she's a clone, her parents were nobody. I wonder if Filoni is thinking that. I gotta think he is. But if that bore out to be true, how would you guys feel about that?
I'd be okay with it.
It's better than the explanation somehow Palpatine.
Yeah,
that's true. Okay, you definitely got that.
And
that's an interesting theory. It's something I've never really thought about before. I've just always taken it at face value that the Emperor had a son, and that was Rey was the offspring.
But
like
really,
a true traditional grandchild.
Who's bumping uglies with Palpatine?
Yeah.
There's the Jedi mind trick, man. Come on, you tried it as a teenager. Don't tell me you didn't.
Ian McDermott said it.
I tried it yesterday, and I still look like this. Okay.
So then how it well then you're going to get a portion of people complaining about retconning, though, of course, and
but all this is retconning.
How? Not necessarily. You can make everything fit. I mean, they skipped over enough. I mean, that theory, there would be a little retconning with that one, because they explicitly said that it was his son and that she's a daughter of his son.
Well, that's the story he told her.
Right. Yeah. So it could go back to a certain point of view.
That's right.
I'm not disparaging retconning either, because I mean, it happens all the time. Look at, for God's sake, look at Star Trek. They retcon all the time. If you watch Discovery, I mean, it's.
Yeah,
let's not go down that path.
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's bad. Just like, when I say Last Jedi is my least favorite of the new trilogy, I thought all 3 films were beautifully made.
Yeah.
I mean, cinematically, they're gorgeous. I was just a little, with some of the story choices.
Yeah,
and lack of character development. There, I said it.
Stop.
I'm disappointed you haven't brought it up yet.
This whole episode is upside down. Stop.
Well, but here's the thing: how it's been 8 years now since the Rise of Skywalker. Hard to believe.
Has it really?
Yeah, 8 years, and we're still talking about these movies.
Mm-hmm.
What other movies came out 8 years ago that we're still talking about?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
Wow.
Talking about the sequels, a couple of the other things that bothered me were just a couple of the casting, like DB said, some of the choices they made with characters. I thought they underutilized Finn.
Totally.
I think, he spent the second movie running around just screaming "Array." I mean, pretty much for the whole film.
I love it when you point that out.
He did. And,
I'm not disagreeing. I love it when you point that out because it's true.
And I think, personally, Hux was miscast. I love the actor. I just don't think he was the right guy for the role. I think he didn't carry enough gravitas in his on-screen persona. I saw it as a little boy in his dad's clothes.
See, I love that. I picture he was a petulant child, and I thought that was perfect for.
Well, he became a petulant child in the second and third films, but in the first one, they tried to portray him as this, giving a Hitler style speech to the troops and just this rock solid commander. And then the pivot to the petulant child was I was like, well, kind of make up your mind. What is he going to be? I thought they could have used him as a bigger threat to Kylo if they had kept him as the strong, solid leader. There was potential there. Again, when they were talking about when Kylo was bashing his program of the stormtrooper program, taking the kids and raising them and brainwashing them. There was a kernel there that they could have popped that kernel and done more with it. And the whole in the last movie, it was me that betrayed him. I thought that I don't know, it just rang wrong with me. And I thought if they had gotten an actor with a little more to his on-screen charisma to really portray that, I don't know. I thought it cheapened, the role. And talking about comedy, I think DB had mentioned comedy. We're not used, I think one of the things that rubbed some people wrong was there was almost an overuse of comedy in the second one. The tossing of the lightsaber, it didn't bother me as much as an isolated thing, again, because he threw away the saber in Jedi. But it was the Poe and stalling for time with Hux, and he may as well been telling Yo Mama jokes. It felt like, during that part, it just felt like it was a little too much.
Okay, so
and I get they were going for something different, and I laughed when I first watched it. I laughed my butt off. I thought it was hilarious.
So that's one of the failings that the sequel trilogy had, was it didn't have the same comic relief characters that the original trilogy and even the prequel trilogy had. I loathe C-3PO. I hate that character. I always have, even when I was a kid. But I understand why he was there. I understand why he and R2-D2 were there. George said he made those movies for 12-year-old boys, and so he needed to connect with them. And that's why Jar Jar Binks, I thought, was brilliant. Mm-hmm. I know fans hate him. Well, he's aged very well. Mm-hmm. But Jar Jar Binks made my kids Star Wars fans. Mm-hmm. And just for that, I'm like, thank you, Jar Jar. Right. But, he served that role. But in the sequel trilogy, we didn't have those characters. The closest we came was Babu Freak in Rise of Skywalker. He was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and what was that's so Chewie's death. You know, again, great story. I wish they had kind of worked it into maybe the second one, where you're wondering then for the whole time length, you know, between the second and third film. But when they killed him off in the third, and then all of a sudden it felt like 2 scenes later he's back. There was no suspense. There was no buildup. I was sitting there the whole time in the theater going, he's alive. They're going to find him. And there was no emotional, like if you had him killed in the second movie, or quote unquote killed in the second movie, and then you find him in the third, the emotional impact of that alone would have been huge to the storytelling.
Well, to your point, I don't even remember that as a story point.
See? Right. It just went by so fast. I was like, he's not dead. They're going to find him. It was, they shot the wrong transport is what happened.
But to play devil's advocate, if they had killed him, quote unquote, in the second one, and then brought him back in the third one, the criticism would have been ridiculous. You know, oh, JJ's just overcorrecting, you know, because they are that film already took that hit, you know.
True enough. True enough.
Well, and it would be an echo back to Boba Fett, an echo back to Darth Maul.
Right on.
You know, here we have 2 fan favorite characters that are killed, and they're ultimately brought back.
Well, we have a saying on the show, which is characters are only dead until Filoni needs them for another storyline. So, you know.
Well, in the case of Darth Maul, that was George Lucas's idea to bring him back, and you know, Dave Filoni's like, wait, you can't bring him back. You cut him in half, and
that was good.
That was good.
That was awesome.
But because you remember George, he specifically made it impossible for fans to want Darth Maul to come back. You know, he was like, well, I had to make him not be able to return. And, you know, and then he has him return. I just find that hysterical. And one of the reasons why I love George Lucas as a storyteller, because he's not afraid to alter his own story.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on with that. Yeah.
You know, speaking of Maul, I really want him to go back and finish the Solo trilogy. I want to see more of Kira and
Crimson Dawn.
Syndicates. And
Yes, that's what I would really like.
They kind of teased us that Maul would be coming back, and then poof.
Well, you know, Solo takes place in between Clone Wars and Rebels, and you know, we see his final fate in Rebels in the final episode. So
yeah, but even still, I mean, we're doing Tales of the Empire. We're going to learn more about Elsbeth, and we just saw her pass away in Ahsoka.
Well,
supposedly,
and that series I'm excited about. However, it needed to come out a year ago before the Ahsoka TV series, because one of the problems Ahsoka had was that it was so steeped in Clone Wars and Rebel lore. Fans knew these characters. Well, they knew her, they knew Sabine, they knew Ezra. You know, we knew those characters and we knew what was going on. But like my wife, who's just a casual Star Wars fan, she had no clue. She had no connection to those characters in any way, shape, or form. And, you know, Tales of the Empire is going to make Ahsoka a better TV show because it's going to fill in those holes with Morgan Elsbeth and the Inquisitors.
Yes.
In particular, the final Inquisitor, which I'm not entirely sure isn't Barriss.
Oh,
that could be.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think if they had DB touched on it? You know, all the I think with the sequels too, part of what was ruining the experience was all the hype and all the focus behind the scenes that they were doing. And I get it. That's the culture nowadays in terms of social media, and you got to spin that wheel. But if they had not done the JJ finale and what a lot of people say overcorrected a lot, which I think they did a little bit, but if they'd gone the Colin Trevorrow route, with his story, do you think they would have been better received?
So, you know what? I don't know anything about his story.
Okay.
And I've avoided any speculation on that because it didn't happen. So
True.
To me, it just doesn't matter. So I've not even read his treatment or, what he had intended at all. So I just deal with what we have.
Fair enough. But yeah, I think again, the sequel trilogy for me, it's got good components. I like a lot of pieces of it. It's not for me yet. It's not a lot really rewatchable. If I'm throwing Star Wars on, I'm throwing other stuff on. I've tried to rewatch it to see if I can watch it on a regular basis, and it's still not there for me yet. The
Force Awakens was the only one that wasn't rewatchable for me. I've watched the other two several times, but like we said though, I do appreciate that it brought new younger generation into Star Wars, and it's keeping it going for the rest of us that appreciate the other Star Wars projects that probably wouldn't exist if it weren't for the success of that.
Yeah, I think they established a good set of core characters, but it seems the timeline on the sequel trilogy is compressed compared to the original or even the prequel trilogy. They seem to all happen within a year or two.
That's true.
Whereas, the OT was, roughly a decade, from start to finish, probably less than that. But I would have liked to seen more interplay between the three main leads. And we didn't even really get two of them to meet until Last Jedi at the end. Okay. And I think Finn was a totally wasted character. I mean, they really led us to believe he was going to be the Jedi for the new trilogy. And not that I minded Rey, but everybody said she was a Mary Sue. And that's why I think if they had made it a longer time period for the three films, people wouldn't have felt that, she was some sort of superhero bitten by the space spider and can use the Force or whatever.
But is that a legitimate critique? And hear me out. Anakin, if Anakin had been a girl, he would have been called a Mary Sue. Luke Skywalker, he's never been in a starfighter, and he's the one who can blow up the Death Star. He's a Mary Sue. This is the pattern that Star Wars establishes.
Yeah, it's not Meek saying she's a Mary Sue. I didn't really have a problem, but that was a very prominent, critique of it or criticism when the trilogy was out. And
well, it's like nobody hates Star Wars more than a Star Wars fan.
Go.
These people are going to complain about it, and in spite of the fact that we already seen that happen in the original trilogy,
well,
they're finding something to pick about.
She didn't necessarily follow the traditional hero's arc that the other heroes have followed. She didn't have that failure along the way that Anakin had, with that Luke had, and I think that was part of what was fueling some of that. Was they just saw this? She just had a steady rise, and Anakin and Luke both had, Luke rushed off to face Vader too soon, lost his hand. Anakin going up against Dooku, the first time, again losing his hand, and the failures that we saw in his journey, and I think that was part of what fueled some of that talk.
That's how we know she's not a Skywalker. She didn't lose an arm.
Exactly.
Well, so
my theory is that she's definitely she's got to have some Amidala blood in her, because she too fell in love with a mass murder psychopath. So.
There you go. Well,
okay. All right.
So the criticism that Rey did not earn her stature is valid, and she doesn't earn it until Rise of Skywalker. She dies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She didn't have to lose a limb. She lost her life. And if Kylo hadn't used he knew he was dying, and he uses his force healing abilities to bring her back, and that's when she earned it. She needed to earn it sooner, and I think that's a valid criticism.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, yeah, I mean, it was just because especially everybody has their ups and downs. That's what it is. And on that journey to become a hero, the traditional hero story, they always have that stumble. So we just got a comment in the chat. So from Unboxing the Boxes, my Star Wars collection. Yes, it is a prerequisite.
Yes,
It is. You have to lose. Sorry, you just have to lose a limb.
The right hand.
The right hand.
Yeah.
And if you notice, and you can't say Leia because Leia was either an Organa or she was a Solo. So, she didn't take on the Skywalker name. So,
but 3PO, how many times did he lose an arm in the series?
I didn't recognize him in the second film.
Yeah.
He had a red arm.
Exactly.
Or the first one.
I want to see that story. Doggone it.
Yeah, it's
it was told in a comic, I think.
Comic, yeah. I've heard a summary of that story, and it was it's actually kind of a cool story from what I heard. I haven't read it myself, but
I think we need Tales of the Droids.
Tales of the Droids.
Yes, we do. A Gonk story.
A Gonk story.
Yes,
absolutely. So, okay. Any other thoughts about anything animated or sequel related? I mean, I think we've kind of covered a lot of topics.
You can like Star Wars, you don't have to like all of it.
Right.
Well, so droid bait.
Bring it, come on.
No, one of the comments you made ties directly back to my favorite episode of the Clone Wars. When you talked about Luke Skywalker just tossing the lightsaber away, it was more than it was intended to be more than just shock value. It was to show the lesson that Ahsoka had to learn in the first season of the Clone Wars in my favorite episode, Lightsaber Lost. That the lightsaber, yes, it is the weapon and the tool of the Jedi, but it is not the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And being a Jedi is so much more than that. You're having a lightsaber does not make you a Jedi, and that's what I think that meant. Whether the director intended it or not, I think Mark Hamill in his mind knew that that's what that was about.
I think you're right. It's just I can remember the laughter in the theater when that happened after the buildup for the end of Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the first thing we see. Well, the first Luke scene we see.
And Unboxing the Box said maybe Rey will lose her hand in the new Rey movie. She did take on the Skywalker name, so the threat is there.
If we get a new Rey movie, it's a big question mark right now.
I'd like them to make it. I'd like them to make a movie.
I would too.
But it's.
I think she just took the name on because she wanted to claim the moisture farm. But that's just my thought.
Well, it's prime real estate.
Isn't that another great statement, though? Not just from a Star Wars perspective, but from our life perspective. We are not our ancestry. We are not bound, and our actions are not bound by those who came before us, and we choose our own actions, our own destiny. And by her choosing to call herself a Skywalker is the greatest really example of that. And I think that's an important lesson for everyone to learn in life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I called it pretty early in the film that it was going to have a Titanic ending. You guys have never seen Titanic?
Yeah, we've had Titanic.
Yeah, we've seen it.
She takes his name even though he's, at the bottom of the Atlantic.
And she threw the heart of the ocean into the sea, and Rey buried the lightsabers in the desert.
Yeah.
No, good point. How bad do you think Anakin was cringing when he saw his saber buried in the sand?
I'll build a new one.
I did like the design of her new saber though, and I saw that coming when she had the bow staff for a lot of the movies. I was like, that'd be a pretty good hilt, and it's a nice looking. I like it. It's not bad, but yeah, I hope they do make it. I hope they do make the Rey movie. I want to see the progression. I want to see more. I want to see where they go with the story. Will they work Grogu into it when he's 100 years old? Will they? I mean, the potential. I'd like to see the potential, because then we're moving on to a new era. We're moving on to
That's my podcast co-host, by the way,
very cool.
Aubrey.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Your wife's favorite redhead.
There you go. But yeah, I'd like to see them develop that film. I want to see where they go, take it to a new direction. Who can they have as a new enemy? Other than, I know what I was gonna say about Palpatine. I think if they had somebody had pointed this out once, and I thought it had some decent, what if that audio clip, and of course when they finished the second film, they didn't know where exactly what they were going to be doing in the third film, but if they had put that audio clip from Fortnite at the end of the second film, where Palpatine's doing the broadcast, and that's the only place they released it, was Fortnite, was this Palpatine's broadcast to the galaxy. And if they had gotten this random rogue transmission at the end of episode 2 and then cut to credits, that I think that would have done a lot to been like. And I remember like when Scruffy and I were at Celebration Chicago, and we were there for the trailer. We got to get into the room to watch the trailer for Rise of Skywalker, and to bring Ian McDermott out, and the energy was like, remember the energy in that room that day, Scruff.
Yeah,
awesome. it was electric, and it was like, all right, I was intrigued the way they were portraying it, but like you said, clunky dialogue, and it just.
Here's the villain for Rey. 2 words, and fandom goes crazy. Yuuzhan Vong.
They would go crazy over that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. I could see that.
But wait, is Filoni directing? Because he'll bring back Maul.
No, he is not.
Okay. Because I think you are onto something there. That would be.
I think that would be a formidable foe. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
there are no words for what the fandom would do. That is crazy. That is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you'll have a segment of the trolls complaining about it regardless, but whatever, but that would be a formidable foe. Absolutely. Without a doubt, that'd be very interesting to have. Yeah. I'd be down with that. Totally.
And you could still have Chewbacca's death in that Yuuzhan Vong war, because he's hanging out with Rey. He's Rey's co-pilot now.
Jar Jar as the villain.
Maybe he's leading the Yuuzhan Vong.
How long do Gungans live?
Great question.
Too long.
Stop.
I listen. That was originally George Lucas's intention. That's not just a fan theory. He's admitted that was. He had originally thought that Jar Jar would be the secret Sith Lord. And he got so much blowback from the fans that he backed off of that. But I think that would have been brilliant. The drunken master idea would have been awesome.
It's funny you say that, drunken master, because I went back and did a rewatch of season 1 of Clone Wars for another show that does Star Wars animation, and we were talking about it, and every episode with Jar Jar, I was just, and I've seen him before, but I was just hoping, I was watching for the drunken master, and I'm like, please just give me a little bit of that in him. I wanted to see it. I really did. And I thought
we got as close as we're going to get in Bombad Jedi.
Yes. Yeah. Until we talked about that. And I said, until he dropped the ship, and up until that point, it was going that way. But when he dropped the ship and destroyed the ship, then it was like, okay, that's over. But I didn't mind Jar Jar either, and he was, and having your enemy right there as the bumbling fool is a great storytelling technique. It is, because he's there watching the whole time, observing. You never suspect him. You underestimate him. And
I mean, what if he had been Darth Plagueis?
orchestrating this thing this whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That would have been cool.
it would have made more sense with him stepping in for Amidala and, nominating Palpatine and let's create the clone army. I mean, that would have really come full circle had they done that.
And had we seen Palpatine murder his master.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much cool storytelling that could have happened. Oh, well.
So one last question to kind of wrap all this up. We'll kind of go back to animation. And I think we're all in kind of agreement that what they're building with the Mandoverse and animation is those bridges to the sequels. How do we think we're still we just had episode was it 13 drop today, and we've got the probably the 2-part finale to go. But how do we think this finale is going to bridge to the sequels? Where do we think it's going to go?
So, there's part of me that thinks that this is not going to end well for any of them. There's a part of me that thinks that none of them get out of this alive. But then there's another part of me with, here comes the cavalry that thinks that we're going to see the return of Tech, that he's still alive, and that, Commander Cody joins the rebellion. I think it probably ends open-ended for the Batchers, but I have a feeling that Omega goes off with Asajj Ventress, and her story is not done.
No, it's not. So Nika Futterman, the voice actress, was on Rule the Galaxy right after the original trailer dropped, and she said that at that point in the story, she said what we're getting is only an appetizer in terms of Asajj, and we still got the main course and dessert to go. So that does imply that we're going to get more Asajj. Now
here's my question though. Everyone knows that Dave Filoni wants to adopt Heir to the Empire and the Thrawn trilogy. Mm-hmm. And he's put all of those pieces in place with the Bad Batch, Mount Tantus on Wayland, the cloning facility. We know that the hand of Luke Skywalker is probably floating in amber somewhere, ready to be cloned. I feel like if they want this series to pay off, they've got to really set that whole scenario up in the finale. And it's okay if it leaves us on a cliffhanger, but if we know they're doing Heir to the Empire, everyone will be happy. Mm-hmm. Well, except for the people who love Mara Jade, because we'll never get Mara Jade.
No, that's never happening.
It's not looking like it so far.
No.
What if Omega is Mara Jade?
I think Asajj Ventress is the substitute for Mara Jade.
You think so?
Yeah, and initially with Mandalorian, I thought it was pretty clear that Cara Dune was the substitute for Mara Jade.
Interesting.
Yeah, Favreau and Filoni are not opposed to the character archetype, but they are honoring George Lucas's wishes. He hated Mara Jade, and he thought she never should have existed. And so Filoni has said, as long as I'm in charge, I'm going to honor George's wishes.
That's all. It's almost like he's here.
I sat at the hem of his garment, and it's the least I can do is to honor it.
Hey, I have a question after watching the last couple episodes of Bad Batch. Whenever Scruffy's done.
I'm done.
Where's Batcher?
Oh, whoa.
That's not cool, dude.
No, that's not cool, man.
Wait a minute. He was in the previous episode, but he was not in this episode.
That's right. He was not.
Where's Batcher?
Just probably back on Pabu. They probably decided not to take him, would be my guess. I mean, that would probably be.
It would probably be because I think the Bad Batch crew knows that they're going into this and they may not be coming back.
So did they drop Batcher off and he's hanging with Gonki?
He's probably Bancher and Gonki are hanging out, and they're at the babysitter's house. And
what's the pirate, the smuggler's name?
Fee.
He's probably with her.
Okay, I can accept that as an answer. But I just thought, I didn't see Batcher at all.
Yeah, that didn't occur to me until just this moment.
I have a feeling they're gonna do, I think the cavalry is gonna be obviously a lot of the clones flying in. I think one of the things that I've been thinking about is they always say Clone Wars with an S, and so far we've only seen a Clone War. And is this, they always refer to it as in plural. And I'm wondering if maybe this if they have a big battle on Tantus with the clones fighting the stormtroopers, will that kind of be considered a second, you know what I mean?
The official Clone Wars.
I read somewhere that the Clone Wars, the plural of it, referenced where it was happening on many, many, many fronts. But I don't remember where I read that from, so I could.
Also, I think that. I think they foreshadowed something in episode 2, which is I think once Tantus, I don't know if Tantus is going to survive this, because I think when they either that or it's going to become a Spirit Halloween. But,
there it is, right there. Dollar General, maybe.
Yeah. In the second episode, Hemlock's previous facility had been the casualty of an orbital strike, and I have a feeling that because they put so much secrecy on the location of Tantus, that once it's compromised, I think that the Emperor is going to just call in an orbital strike to wipe the thing out, because I also think that will help the story in the fact that it's going to stretch out, and I have a feeling they might lose some of their research because Necromancer is still going on in the Mandoverse. And it's not until the sequel era that it really comes to fruition. And the Dark Trooper program, which I think Hemlock is working on, based on some of the clues. I think that's what the CX Troopers. I think Wade from Records of the Republic is spot on with that. That the CX Troopers are the first generation of what's going to become the Dark Troopers.
Do we think that CX Trooper that's been following them around is Tech?
No. It's one of the theories. I was leaning that way for a while, but then I don't know. I think
sadly, I think Tech is really gone, and I don't think anybody's going to make it out of this the final episode. I mean, obviously Omega does, but
we know Rex, Wolf, and Gregor will as well,
right? But as far as the Bad Batch goes, I don't think any of them are going to make it. I think it's going to end similar to Rogue One, where sometimes the good guys do just die.
Well, I think that's what I mean. Like with the orbital strike, I think a lot that, those that are going to survive, that Filoni and Jennifer Corbett and the rest of them may want to use for future stories. They'll get out of there. Whether it's a complete spinoff with Asajj and Omega, which kind of is the leading theory, or if they're just used in future series, they've got to pull some of them out. But I think, the orbital strike would be a good way of kind of cleaning the slate of the clones, and then you've just got fragments out there, but a good chunk of the remaining force could be wiped out that way. But I think the Dark Trooper program, because Moff Gideon refers to it in the Mando, that they've just recently, that third generation was kind of new, where they took the human out of, the program, and that's a good 20-year span or something. So I think by destroying some of that research, it'll help stretch out.
Possibly. And you remember in season 1 of The Mandalorian, I think it was season 1, we saw on Moff Gideon's flagship, the cloning facility that was basically a mobile cloning facility.
Yep. And the one on Navarro, when they took out that base on Navarro. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, I mean, it'd be interesting. Scruffy or DB, any thoughts on where you think it might end?
No, that's pretty much what I was thinking. The sadness, and I'll be crying, and probably going to have to call into work.
Well, they did. Go ahead.
The reason why we don't see any Caminos after this is Nala Se is the last of her kind.
Mm-hmm.
And if they destroy that whole facility, the Kaminians are toast forever. They're Alderaan all over again.
We'll get a little more into the today's episode. We'll get in a little more to the breakdown on tomorrow's episode live stream. But something I wanted to point out: did anybody notice? Has anybody seen the fact that there's 2 mounds for Mount Tantus?
I did. Mm-hmm. Yes, I noticed that for the first time today.
Okay, it wasn't just me. That's what I did too. I was like, wait a minute. But I thought that was kind of funny. But
one's a clone of the other.
That's good. That's good. Uh-huh. That's a clip right there.
Mm-hmm. That is for sure. All right. Well, cool. Let's move on to let's move on to Collection Corner. And I think with Collection Corner, I mean, if we have anything to share, great. But also we kind of wanted to talk about ICCC a little bit because, that's where Johnny, that's where we met you. And, just kind of wanted to get some thoughts about, what were some of the things, what are some fond memories that we've got of ICCC?
Well, so one, it is one of the few conventions in the country, and you guys know this if you do a lot of conventions, that puts value in podcasters. They give us our own podcasting building, our own podcasting stage the last couple of years that I've been there. And so for that's really awesome. The only other convention that I know of that does it the way that ICC does is Indie PopCon in Indianapolis. Mm. If you guys haven't been to Indie Pop, you need to check that out. But so that is fantastic. One of the things that I really did like was that vendor hall. And of course, we're going to lose that huge vendor hall because it was so big. It wasn't claustrophobic. And you could actually get close to some of the special guests. I had a great time talking with the actress that played the Twi'lek dancer in Return of the Jedi.
Femi Taylor.
Yeah. And I just walked right up to her table and showed her a magic trick and had a great time. And that doesn't happen at a lot of other conventions. No. So the accessibility to some, not all of the celebrity guests is really pretty awesome. And, last year, it's going to be hard to beat having, because was it last year we had both McDermott and the entire cast of, well, not the entire cast, but the core cast of the Clone Wars, right?
Rebels.
Oh, was it Rebels? Okay.
Yeah. Clone Wars was the year before that.
Okay. Yeah, I get them mixed up. Mm-hmm. But I mean that's pretty amazing stuff. Mm-hmm. To have that level of guests. So, and people are just there to have a good time. Like you said, the community is strong, and look, if you've never been to a convention to begin with, ICCC is maybe one of the best starter cons to go to. But if you're an experienced old hat veteran con goer, ICCC is one of the best cons to go to.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Absolutely.
It's all about the fans. That's what makes this one different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Scruffy, any thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. You're not herded like cattle. The accessibility to the people you came there to see. It's the fandom that's there. We like DB and I have both been to a lot of different bigger conventions, and this one is it's big enough to be awesome, but still great to go to for accessibility and being able to get around and talk to the people you went to see.
For sure. Anything that we're kind of looking forward to, or what would be our wish list for this upcoming one?
Well, I'll tell you, I do like that they're back at the Sheraton Nashville. It is a smaller venue than the Wilson County Fairgrounds. but with a smaller venue, you get a closer community. People aren't having to walk 3 acres to get to different parts of the con, which is going to make it great. So that's a plus. And I think one of you mentioned if they did a podcast stage out in the main thoroughfare, one of the main rooms, that would be aces.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that idea actually came from Headless Ned Stark when we had him on a couple weeks ago, and I love the idea. I think that's a great idea. It'd be a lot of fun for us, we get more exposure, definitely. All of us doing the podcasts, and I think we have a lot of fun. Those impromptu ones that we do with the guys from ECPC TV. Those are some of the best conversations. I remember the first time you got on my radar was from the Sheraton one 2 years ago when you guys were talking about the sequels up there on the stage, and I was like, it was
because I maintain that. That year we had a little argument about fuel in the Star Wars universe. I maintain that it is petroleum based.
Yeah, that was a great conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Any other things anybody would like to kind of hoping to see or
I would love to see the guest list.
Yep.
I'm just to be able to complete some autographs. I'd like to see the theme. Any guesses on what it's going to be?
I don't know. Just with Mike, I don't know.
One of the things I do like is, yes, it is Star Wars heavy, but it's not Star Wars exclusive.
Right.
It is a multi-fandom convention. And, I know that both of these guys have been doing the convention circuit this year, but I've not had a chance to see them. I would love to see Sam Jones, Flash Gordon.
Yes.
And
yes.
I would love to see Reb Brown, Captain America. From the CBS 1980s TV.
Oh,
movies.
okay. Yeah.
I would love to see them.
Yeah.
Sam Jones just did Toledo, and that's just a little bit further than we like to drive for a con.
Oh, I could have did it easily if I could have got the weekend off.
There's the other problem.
And so many of these guys, it's sad to say, they're not going to be with us very much longer.
Unfortunately, not.
I had the opportunity to host a panel with Ron Glass at the very first Indie PopCon, and we didn't know then that 2 years later he was going to be gone. What a special moment, and some of these guys, they're just not going to be with us now. Guy Gerard, he's going to outlive us all just out of spite, but that's another story for another day.
All right. Yeah. We'd love to meet Sam Jones. We actually did a whole episode on the movie, and it was there's a great documentary that he did recently that we talked about as well. And Sam, you've got an open invitation. I know you're listening, so
absolutely, he's there.
Yeah, we know, and
he's a fan. He's a fan.
Absolutely, who wouldn't be? But yeah, I think Scruffy, I think you nailed it. Inquiring minds want to know what's the theme and what's the guest list this year, and I think that's really, I wouldn't be surprised if we have to wait a couple more months.
Absolutely, we're not going to hear anything till June, probably July.
Yeah.
Now, has D. Bradley Baker been at any of these conventions?
That's one of the autographs I'm missing. I've seen him at some conventions. I've never been able to go. I don't recall which ones they were, but it's one of those autographs that eludes me right now. I need to get that autograph to finish up the Clone Wars poster.
Because you book D. Bradley Baker, you're booking like 20 different characters, thousands of characters.
Yep, that'd be awesome.
Right on, for sure. All right, well, cool. Anything else, you guys? Anything for Collection Corner? We also have another one tomorrow, so we don't have to go too heavy on it.
I'll save mine for tomorrow.
If I can show off something,
absolutely,
please do.
Bring it on.
So, I love comic books. Comic books are a big part of my youth and my our podcast. We talk about comics all the time, especially the comic books that are based on Saturday morning IPs. Well, last weekend I went to my local comic book shop, and they were doing a 60% off sale on graphic
I would
novels,
love to have been there,
including hardcover omnibus graphic novels.
Oh wow!
And I picked up the Star Wars Droids
yes,
and Ewoks hardcover
Wow.
oh,
for $13.
oh,
This originally retailed for $79,
yes, it did.
and I could never justify it, but with this sale, I had no problem.
Right on.
And
So I got to do a health check. Matt from Yubcast, are you okay right now? Because I know he's probably his heart's probably just a beating right now.
and for those of you who don't know, this is the Marvel Comics Star Comics adaptation of the Ewoks and Droids cartoon series.
I would love that.
Those were originally written and drawn in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
And they're remastered, recolored on high gloss archival paper and beautiful hardcover, leather bound hardcover edition with the dust cover. Yeah, very cool.
Oh, that is so epic! Love it. I absolutely love it.
So definitely the chat is chiming in, and definitely looks like a great book for sure.
I have a non-collection question. Should I hold off, or are we going to continue on?
No, go for it.
And normally I would bring this topic up to be a smart aleck, or
I can quit anytime.
or to irritate Scruffy.
Oh, all right, here we go, please.
But no, Johnny, back of the cereal box, I have to ask, and let me preface this with. I'm asking because to me it resembles 80s cartoons. But what do you think of Resistance?
Okay, so you know what? I have not watched that. You
of all people have not watched this.
Well, and it surprises me too. And I don't know why. I think I have a mental block with the Resistance. And here's why. At the beginning of Force Awakens, they're the Republic. How did the Republic turn into the Resistance?
Mm-hmm.
It's something that makes no sense, and maybe that animated series fills it in. But
no,
they're just. That is my biggest complaint about the sequels: is how does the Republic become a tattered resistance to the New Order? It never made any sense to me, and so I just never got into that series.
Yeah, it's not explained in this series, and they do cross over a lot with the events of the sequel trilogy, and characters pose in it. But just stylistically, the animation does remind me of late 70s, early 80s animation.
Well, and the character designs are very similar to some of the cartoon series like Mask and the Bionic Six. You see those fingerprints in Resistance and the character designs really clearly. So, yeah.
Good point.
I kind of forgot about Mask. Yeah, you're right. It does.
Yeah.
That was similar.
For sure.
Okay, that was something that I thought you would be an expert on. That's kind of interesting.
You know what? Next time we talk, I will have watched that show.
It's only like 25 episodes. It doesn't take much.
I'm sorry.
So this comment from Unboxing the Boxes, he's asking about the Saturday morning Dungeons and Dragons comic series. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
That's awesome. I love the cartoon. I remember watching that because I was a big D&D player back then, so I love the cartoon.
So you'll be interested to know this. Of one of our super fans back at the cereal box, a guy named David Welsh. He goes by Zentron. that Dungeons and Dragons cartoon series didn't have a proper ending. It just kind of vanished. And he and a group of animators got together and they did a final episode.
Really?
And it's available on YouTube.
I'll have to look that out.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
I never watched the D&D. At that point in my life, my mother was making me bowl on a Saturday morning youth league, and I didn't get to watch cartoons.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
I was watching Saturday morning cartoons until they finally took them off the air.
Now, when
Hold on, guys. I just lost my mic.
Uh-oh.
We can hear
still
you.
hear you.
Yeah, we hear you.
We hear you.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Something happened. I lost audio on this side.
Okay.
Can you hear us at all? No.
Nope. Apparently not. Man. The crazy.
Aw.
Aw, come on.
That's why.
We're only live
There
on
we
the
go.
internet.
Okay. I got it.
Okay, we're back. All right.
You have some gremlins
We're
in
back.
your electronics.
There we go. But yeah, Resistance does try to it was the first attempt at trying to build connections to the sequels. And so that's about all I'll say about it. And yeah.
Well, there's only one other good thing about the Resistance cartoons. Vorpax.
Vorpax.
Buggles, man.
Yep. Vorpax do?
No.
Okay,
That's
sorry,
just-
I've
that's
taken
just
us
weird.
down a path that didn't need
That's just
to.
weird. Yeah. Well, yeah, really?
No,
on the Resistance path.
I no, but seriously, Johnny, we would love to hear what you think about it. We're not fans ourselves, but we'd love to
You
hear
can hear us again.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. His microphone is muted now, so
Yeah, it won't let me unmute.
yeah, it won't let me unmute either. I think he did. It says
There we
he
go.
There we
There.
go. Hey.
did.
All right.
It
Sweet.
still doesn't want to play through my earbuds though. What's going on? This is weird.
That is weird.
We use StreamYard for our show, but it's being a little bit persnickety for me.
Okay.
right now.
Well, let's start to wrap up then. So Johnny, why don't you kind of go through, just tell everybody where they can find your show.
Yeah, so you can find Back of the Cereal Box at backofthecerealbox.fun. And we live stream just like you guys do every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Central. And we really do it in our pajamas with big bowls of cereal. And it is
awesome.
fueled by nostalgia memories. And we take deep dives into the classic cartoons of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. This Saturday, we are going to be talking about Black Star.
Oh, okay.
Oh, awesome.
I was so excited.
That's
You'll have to tune in to see why I have this face.
Oh,
very cool.
Have you done an episode of Battle of the Planets yet?
Yes.
Oh,
Well,
I
although we're
love
going to do
Battle
it
of the
again
Planets.
because we've got new co-hosts since we did that episode. So it's always fun when you have a rotating cast of co-hosts that you can go back and cover stuff that you did in the past because now everyone's opinion is different.
Yeah. Well, that's why we like to have a lot of guests on, because I can't rotate these guys. I owe them too much money, so they say they can't leave the show. So
one of the things that we do, just for anyone out there watching, there are so many shows like what we do that are male-dominated sausage fests, and because I have a daughter who is incredibly talented and strong-willed, and she is Rey Skywalker. I made a conscious decision when we launched Back of the Cereal Box that my co-hosts would be women, to give women, geek girls, a voice in the geek pop culture community. That was really important to me. So that is one of the big differences that you'll see in our show. It's and a lot of time the girls, they are the newbies. They are the representatives of the audience. And a lot of times they don't have the expertise, and that makes it for interesting discussion because
Mhm.
we get authentic feedback, authentic reactions to those properties from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Very cool. Very, very cool. Very cool.
Oh, let me know when you're doing one for Gem. Gem and the
We did
holograms.
Gem 2 years ago, but you know what? It's
Oh,
time for a revisit.
Yeah.
It's time for a revisit.
Did you talk to the voice actress when she was at ICC this last year?
So yes, Samantha Newark is a good friend of mine. She lives just a few streets down from me. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
yeah, she's been on our show twice.
In the month of May, we're gonna have. So she recorded a birthday wish for Scruffy when we were there last year.
Yeah.
So we'll play that again on air this coming May. But yeah, I love talking to her. She was great. So we'd love to have her. I think we're gonna reach out to her because we talked about having her come on at some point onto the show. But yeah, definitely back to the cereal box. Everybody, check it out. Also, Johnny, I want to say if you have any stickers, I like fellow pod stickers.
You got some space there.
I do. I have some space, so I'd love to represent. So I'd love to pick up one from you and get that. And yeah. So something we don't do a lot on the show. We need to start doing more is plug in the show a little bit. We're on X or Twix, Facebook live stream. We've also added audio versions. We've just recently added. We've been on Pandora along with Spotify, Apple podcasts, and a lot of the other Stitcher, Breaker, all those. But we just recently added Amazon Music and iHeartRadio, so you can catch us on those services as well, the audio versions. Don't forget, every Wednesday, we just today we had the letter Z of our Wooks Up series drop. Scruffy did overtime and actually covered gave you four times the information.
And I gave you some utterly useless information during that recording too.
So he covers Zud, an Imperial Intelligence officer, zombies with favorite topic, Zeffy the murder bear, and Zuckabors. So Z just dropped today. Make sure you check that out. We do a Wooks Up every Wednesday, which is where we pick a letter of the alphabet and dive into Wikipedia and read an entry and usually make some sort of snarky comments about it. So definitely check that out. That's audio version only.
Usually,
also,
maybe someday I'll take it serious.
Right. Johnny, so something we do with all of our guests for coming on the show, you become an honorary member of Brown Squadron, and with that you get a flight designation and a call sign. And let me grab my banner here. And so you are part of the crew now. You're known as Brown 49. And your call sign is Crunchies, which is straight from Wikipedia. Crunchies is the cereal that Mr. Cyril Karn, or more affectionately known as Corn Pop on this show, was eating in the Andor show. So that is actually a canon thing. So we thought that was kind of fitting as a call sign for
I love that.
So welcome to the crew.
Welcome to the crew.
And then with that, I think before we do sign off, guys, that leaves one more segment that we have to do.
We have one more of the upcoming shows.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
you want to all right,
there it is.
That's right. We forgot to talk about this last week. So this list. So right at the top, Johnny with Back to the Cereal. At that point, we didn't have a date confirmed, but as you can see, he's on the show today. Tomorrow night we have the return of Brown 36. Stephen Carbo. He's going to come on the show. We're going to talk about Bad Batch. We're going to talk about and we're going to have the triumphant return of DB's blockbuster segment. So
DB is ready this time.
Yes, and we're gonna get that monkey off our back. The 25th of April, we're gonna have What Does Star Wars Mean to You podcast. They're gonna join us all the way from California. That is gonna have a slightly later start time of 8:15. They're gonna join us around 8:30 that night. May 9th, we're going to have documentary filmmaker Eric Sharkey on the show. And Eric, look up him on IMDb. About 10 years ago, he did a documentary on Drew Struzman, the infamous poster artist. And he has a brand new documentary dropping. And we're going to get to talk to him about that, about Greg Hildebrandt. And he's going to be dropping that soon. So he's going to come on the show and tell us all about that. The 15th, we're going to have author Kelly Knox That's going to be another Wednesday episode, so make sure you stay tuned for that. The 16th of May, we're going to have author Brian Young, also co-host of Sith, Full of Sith podcast. They just reached their 11th year of podcasting, so congratulations to him and Holly Fry. And but where that one's going to be, we'll talk some Star Wars, but that's we're going to talk about his brand new book that drops on the 15th, which is actually a BattleTech universe book. And we're going to talk to him all about that. And then on the 23rd of May, we're going to have Coruscant Nights and the return of Brown Double Deuce Seppi. And we're going to do a little Star Wars role-playing that night for something different. So so those are future guests. Thank you, Scruffy, for not letting me forget that. Now we're going to do...
Wait, we got one more thing.
Stop. No, we're...
Wait.
All right,
Star Trek.
Do it. Oh, yeah. Go.
So,
Okay.
all right. So we are going to do the segment. This is the second time we've done this segment, and I've got...
Where's the song?
It's at the top. Are you going to play it?
I'm going to play it. You ready?
Yes. Dad joke of the week. Time to annoy Scruffy and DB. Dad joke of the week. There
First of all, before you do this, I need this book. I did not know this was a thing.
It just dropped the second. It's it's a hard copy only. There's no Kindle version yet. But yeah, Kelly Knox, she dropped it on the 2nd of April. So it's a very cool book.
I'm so excited.
All right. Tonight's Star Wars Dad Joke of the Week. What kind of books do stormtroopers read in their spare time? You ready?
I got nothing.
All right. Troubleshooting guides. Dad joke of the week. Time to annoy Scruffy and DB. Dad joke of the week. We should do it.
I love that.
Thank you.
Troubleshooting guides.
We should do a different outro for that. But yeah, Brownie 1, if you're listening, I need a video clip for that. So that's Dad Joke of the Week. Yeah, I like that one. That was actually so. All right, we're gonna get out of here. I think it's getting to be about that time. So Johnny, thanks again for coming on the show. Appreciate you. You're welcome back anytime. We definitely want to have you back. So we'll do the final sign off. Before we do that, pick a number between 1 and 3, but you can't pick 2.
We'll do 1.
1. All right. So I'll play that right after this. All right. So this is Brown Leader signing off for the crew, and you have been listening and watching Hyperspace Heroes. That's
no moon.
Yes. All right.
Was it good for you?